Did you know? If you get exposed to radiation, you need to get naked. You can charge phones with pee. And what is the most shoplifted food item in the world? We'll have you rethinking everything you thought you knew for sure. Welcome to another episode of 30 Weird Fun Facts. Buckle up to surprise and amaze everyone in your friends and family. So, without wasting any more time, let's get started with Number 1. Birds have passwords. Some birds' password protect their children. Brown-headed cowbirds have their chicks raised by different species of birds than their own. Adult cowbirds use a special vocalization that unlocks the chick's ability to learn, so no one but them can teach their offspring to song. Number 2. Papua New Guinea's 850 languages. More than 850 languages are spoken in Papua New Guinea. Many of the languages in the country are only spoken and understood by a few thousand people in the world. This makes Papua New Guinea one of the most linguistically diverse countries in the world. Number 3. Sharks and orcas. Great white sharks will avoid an area for a year if they spot a killer whale. The sharks are so terrified of their natural predator that they'll vacate their preferred hunting ground and will not return for up to a year if they encounter one, even if it's just passing by. Number 4. Fox tossing was once a popular sport. Popular with Europe's aristocracy during the 17th and 18th centuries, fox tossing would involve a person or a couple throwing a fox as far and as high as they could. Even though it was hazardous for the people launching the animals, as the terrified animals would often turn on the participants, the result was often fatal for the tossed animals. Number 5. There are tiny little bugs that live in your eyelashes. They're called eyelash mites or demodex, and they're harmless unless you have too many of them. These 8-legged creatures are nearly impossible to see because of their small size and their see-through bodies. Number 6. Flying cars aren't a distant dream of the future. They already exist. In fact, they've existed for decades. The Taylor Aero car was built in 1949, though it never entered mass production. It had detachable wings and could reach speeds of 100 miles per hour in the air and 60 miles per hour on the ground. Number 7. Goalkeepers have faster brains than their teammates. A recent study suggests that goalkeepers actually perceive the world differently than the rest of us mere mortals. Researchers gathered 60 test subjects, some of whom were professional goalkeepers, some of whom were professional outfielders, and others who were non-players. They subjected each volunteer to a series of tests involving identifying distinct visual and audio stimuli. The goalkeepers in the study were the best at distinguishing between the different stimuli. As a result, there's reason to believe that goalkeepers' brains process sensory information faster than most people. Number 8. Hollywood moved from New York to Los Angeles to escape Edison's patents. Hollywood is globally recognized as the movie capital of the world. Yet it wasn't always so. The movie industry was originally based in New York in the 1800s, which was close to New Jersey, and New Jersey was where patent master Thomas Edison was based. Edison had patents on over 1,000 different things, including most of the technology needed to make high-end movies, and boy, did he flex on them patents. Number 9. Most dinosaurs are known from just a single tooth or bone. Given that dinosaurs were alive 65 million years ago, complete fossils are extremely rare. Instead, archaeologists study traces such as loose teeth, bones, tracks, or dung in order to identify the dinosaurs we read about in books now. Number 10. The years 1900 to 1919 earned the tag the dead ball era of baseball history. During those years, baseballs were harder to hit far due to their soft and loosely wound form. It gave a clear advantage for pitchers of the day like Grover Cleveland, Walter Johnson, and Cy Young over hitters. Still, hitters like Ty Cobb, Joe Jackson, and Honus Wagner were some of the most prolific at that time. Number 11. The jury is out. Americans love cats more than dogs. No American household is complete without a furry little friend. While there are more US households with pet dogs, there are way more cats than dogs. A 2019 survey of US households found there to be around 94.2 million pet cats, while there were only 89.7 million pet dogs. Number 12. Fast food restaurant ice is often dirtier than toilet water. You may want to think twice about munching on that ice. In a 2016 study conducted in the UK, major fast food chains were revealed to have fecal bacteria in their ice. Starbucks was also on the list. It was, hopefully, not due to a case of tampering, but a lack of maintenance for their ice machines. Number 13. It is scientifically possible to die from drinking too much water. It's important to stay hydrated to keep our bodies functioning well. However, too much water can also be fatal. When a dehydrated person drinks too much water without the accompanying electrolytes, they can die from water intoxication and hyponatremia. In fact, forced water intake is even a known torture method. Number 14. The ocean contains 20 million pounds of gold. Gold in the ocean waters is so dilute that it would be like looking for sugar grains in a gallon of unstirred coffee. Gold ores can also be found in the depths of the seafloor, but these deposits are encased layers upon layers of rock. Currently, there is no efficient way to retrieve these gold deposits from the ocean. Number 15. A fifth grader accidentally created a new molecule in 2012. During a class activity, 10-year-old Clara Lazan presented her teacher with a randomly constructed molecule diagram. Instead of dismissing it, Mr. Kenneth Bohr took a photo and sent it to a chemist for analysis. Turns out, it was a new, explosive molecule called tetranitrotoxycarbon. Number 16. Explosives funded the Nobel Prize. Alfred Nobel was born into extreme poverty. However, his work with science led him to produce dynamite and other explosives. He went on to establish the Nobel Peace Prize in 1895. Number 17. The biggest tsunami reached over 1,000 feet. The largest tsunami ever recorded occurred in Lituya Bay, Alaska, in 1958. The huge wave measured a staggering 1720 feet. Trees were ripped out by the roots, soil washed away down to the bedrock, and anything and everything that stood in the way was demolished in the blink of an eye. Definitely one of the facts that show how nature is terrifying. Number 18. Friends share more DNA than strangers. According to social homophily, people form bonds based on shared characteristics that can be traced to genetics. A 2018 study tested this theory and discovered that the DNA between friends was more genetically similar than random pairs of strangers. Interestingly, they were only 2/3 as genetically similar as the average married couple. Number 19. If you get exposed to radiation, you need to get naked. One of the weirder yet essential nuclear energy facts. If you get exposed to nuclear substances, the best course of action is to remove all of your clothes. This will remove 90% of the radioactive substance you were exposed to. Number 20. You can charge phones with pee. Using the minerals in human urine, roughly 2.5 cups of pee are enough to charge a cell phone for 3 hours. But we'd suggest leaving this method as your last resort. Number 21. Thomas Edison electrocuted an elephant to death to prove a point. To prove that his direct current was safer than Nikola Tesla's alternating current, Thomas Edison conducted a public experiment on an elephant. In 1903, Edison filmed an elephant getting fried by alternating current in Coney Island. Luna Park Zoo offered Topsy the Asian elephant for the experiment, since she had killed 3 handlers throughout the years. Topsy wouldn't be Edison's only victim, since he recorded other animals being electrocuted as well. Number 22. The invention of Super Soaker. A former NASA scientist who helped develop stealth bombers invented the Super Soaker. Lonnie Johnson eventually licensed his design to Laramie Corporation, later acquired by Hasbro. He made so much money that he was able to fund his own research and development company. Number 23. The fastest surgeon ever ended up causing a 300% mortality rate. Before anesthesia, speed was essential when performing surgery to minimize pain to the patient. Surgeon Robert Liston was considered the fastest knife in the West. He was a pioneer in speed surgery. One time, when performing a battlefield amputation in front of a group of spectators, Liston cut through his patient's leg so quickly that he accidentally cut the fingers off his assistant. Number 24. Wild animals are more afraid of humans than lions. According to New York Times, scientists planted speakers around waterholes in Kruger National Park. They observed the wildlife's reaction to a variety of sounds associated with humans and lions. Wildlife showed a far greater fear response when hearing human-related noises. According to the study, wildlife was twice as likely to run and abandoned water holes in 40% faster time in response to humans than to lions. Number 25. Tail wagging has its own language. If your dog excitedly wags its tail, it means it's happy to see you, right? Not necessarily. According to Discovery.com, dogs wag their tails to the right when they're happy and to the left when they're frightened. Wagging low means they're insecure, and rapid tail wagging, accompanied by tense muscles or dilated pupils, can signal aggression. Number 26. The father of electricity lived his childhood in poverty. Michael Faraday had to work at the age of 13 to sustain himself, since his father was sickly and could not do so. However, he still went on to contribute to what we know about electricity today. Number 27. Helium changes our voice because of its density. Helium is much less dense than oxygen. Typically, we breathe in nitrogen and oxygen. Since helium is less dense than oxygen, the sound of our voice travels faster through our vocal cords. Therefore, helium makes our voice sound weird because the sound is traveling over 2 times faster than usual. Number 28. In the 16th century, it was fashionable to have black teeth. As the ruler of England, Queen Elizabeth set the trends of the 1500s. She was known for her sweet tooth, but years of sugary treats took its toll on her teeth. Incredibly, her mouth full of rotting teeth inspired other women to blacken their own teeth to match. Number 29. The most shoplifted food item in the world is cheese. Cheese, after all, is among the world's most frequently shoplifted food items. Back in 2011, in fact, Centre of Retail Research in Britain proclaimed it the most stolen food on Earth, with nearly 4% of cheese inventory worldwide nicked each year. In 2022, The Independent reported that in UK supermarkets had finally begun to put security tags on cheese. Number 30. Dogs pooping has a pattern. Ever wonder why dogs like to twirl around before they do their business? Well, it's one of the many dog behaviors that perplex researchers, but the prevailing theory is that it has to do with the Earth's magnetic field. Dogs like to poop facing north or south, and spinning around helps them correctly orient their internal compass. That's all for today. Subscribe to our channel for more fun videos.